20 people were shot today. When we see one terrorist attack, doesn't matter how many people died, we can't wait to do anything. I mean, 4 people died in Benghazi, and we're still just, Congress continues to investigate and hear. What needs to happen for the people that represent us to do anything about this issue? I mean, we saw 20 kids die in a school shooting, and the whole country was outraged. Nothing happened.
Well, it boils down to sort of what we call the national conversation. I mean, I'm sure by now on Twitter there's already people relatively prominent in conservative media who've tweeted something in support of gun control. We don't even have a chance to even know what the crime is before the political debate about gun control even starts. The president mentioned gun control in his statement, which in context, that makes sense because as the president, you want to appear like you're doing something. And again, with most of these rampage killings, the proposed gun control measures of background checks and training and things like that would not have stopped any one of the shooters, from Chattanooga to the television news shooting to the one before. Oh my God, I can't even keep the shooting straight because there's so damn many. The Colorado Springs shooting before the Colorado Springs shooting. There was a shooting there just weeks ago that, didn't quite get the press that the current one has. So we don't have a chance to even process the enormity of what this is before we're mired in the political bullshit of it. And unless there are, as a Republican or a group of Republicans who are willing to stand up and the media pissed at them to try to do something, it won't happen. Now, whether or not anything can be done, I think, is a different and not as easy question.
Peter, what do you say to people who say that most of these attacks probably would have happened if we did have stronger gun control laws?
Well, I think the interesting comparison here is to the way America reacts to terrorism. If you take some of those arguments that Josh was running through for us, which are the standard things people say, well, gun control in whatever form wouldn't have stopped any of the recent mass shootings, things like that. I mean, apply it to the way America deals with terrorism, and those arguments start to look very weak. And or the terrorist arguments look very weak. For example, one of the things we are constantly told by the government is that, well, we have our safety measures and our security measures, and shoes come off at the airport and what have you. And in fact, those are stopping terrorist attacks. You just don't know about it. Or you can't actually compile a list of attacks that didn't happen because those security measures were in place. And so if you take that and say, fine, let's have X, Y, or Z forms of gun control, and then spin it around and say, well, we can't even begin to tell you how many bad gun attacks we've stopped because of these things. We don't know how many mass shooters stepped back from the brink because of it. The thing would be that these arguments are politicized, but they're politicized at great danger to us here in the United States. No serious terror attacks seem to happen, but yet there's a multi-trillion-dollar government contractor industry that's grown up around them. We have seen the government step all over the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, and other laws and freedoms we have here, all in the name of protecting us against something that doesn't really seem to happen or happen all that often. Meanwhile, we ignore the fact that some 10,000 Americans a year die through gun deaths. You can categorize those 10,000, break it into as many categories as you like, but there's something very dangerous happening out there, in addition to the mass shootings, that politically we choose to, I'm going to get mixed up in terms here, we choose to politicize it in a very different way. We politicize it into some weird left-right, Second Amendment, government can take my guns when they pry them from my cold dead hands. Whereas with terrorism, we politicize it into an atmosphere of near constant fear and anxiety. I would suggest that if the national government and the media would put a fraction of the effort that they put into making us afraid of terrorists, into making us afraid of gun violence, then that national conversation might, in fact, start to shift into something potentially more productive.
Well, Peter reminded me. I was just going to say, Peter just reminded me of, when I sort of laid some of the blame at conservative media's feet, and I don't think maybe that was as fair as, especially since I didn't mention, as Peter did with the cold dead hands thing, the NRA. I mean, the NRA, like, there could be pilot gun control programs in states. There's these smart guns that can only be fired by people who, like by the people who bought the gun. But the NRA fights everything with, the zealotry of anti-abortion protesters or other particularly zealous groups.